Ambassador Kim Min-jun stood before the Galactic Council chamber, his hands steady despite the weight of the moment. Around him rose towers of crystal and metal, each one holding representatives from species humanity had only dreamed about for centuries. 847 civilizations watched him with eyes that ranged from curious to hostile. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few existed as patterns of light inside containment fields. But all of them were judging Earth. The chamber itself was enormous, built to accommodate beings as small as house cats and as large as elephants. Translators hummed in the air, converting Kim's Korean-accented English into thousands of languages simultaneously. He had practiced his speech for months, memorizing every word, every gesture. Today would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Honored members of the Galactic Council. Kim began, his voice carrying through the vast space. Humanity comes before you in peace and hope. We bring the achievements of our world, our culture, our dreams of joining the community of stars. He activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, showing cities gleaming in the sunlight, forests stretching across continents, oceans teeming with life. Then came humanity's achievements. Art, music, literature, science. The display showed the Great Wall, the pyramids, the International Space Station. It showed doctors healing the sick, teachers educating children, engineers building bridges across impossible distances. Some council members leaned forward with interest. Others remained still as statues. Kim could not read their expressions, could not tell if they were impressed or disappointed. The evaluation had taken 3 months. Council scientists had visited Earth, examining everything from human biology to political systems. They had interviewed leaders, studied history books, analyzed technology. They had taken samples, recorded data, and filed thousands of reports. Kim had answered countless questions, always hoping that his answers were enough. Now came the judgment. Council Director Thelvas, a being that looked like a mantis made of silver metal, rose from the central platform. His voice, translated into flat mechanical English, echoed through the chamber. The Council has completed its evaluation of species designation. Human, planet designation, Earth. We have considered all factors according to standard protocols, established over 12,000 cycles of galactic governance. Kim felt his heart pounding. This was it. The results are conclusive, Thelvas continued. Humanity is denied membership in the Galactic Council and associated protections. The words hit Kim like a physical blow. Denied. He had prepared for this possibility, but hearing it spoke aloud made it real, in a terrible way. The reasons are as follows, Thelvas said, as if reading a grocery list. First, lack of unified planetary governance. Humanity remains divided into competing nation-states with separate militaries and conflicting interests. Second, excessive violent tendencies. Human history shows continuous warfare spanning millennia, with weapons development prioritized over peaceful exploration. Third, insufficient technological development. Human spaceflight capability remains limited to their own solar system. Fourth, biological incompatibility markers. Human aggression indexes and territorial behaviors exceed acceptable parameters for Council integration. Each reason felt like another nail in a coffin. Kim wanted to argue, to explain that humanity was changing, growing, learning. But Council protocols did not allow for debate during judgment pronouncements. Furthermore, Thelvas added, Earth is hereby placed under developmental observation status. No Council species may trade with Earth, share technology with Earth, or establish formal contact with Earth, except through designated monitoring stations. This status will be reviewed in no less than 500 cycles, assuming humanity demonstrates sufficient progress. 500 cycles. Kim did quick mental math. In Earth years, that was nearly 1,000 years. Longer than all of recorded human history. Earth's monitoring will be conducted remotely through observation probes, Thelvas finished. This judgment is final. The council has spoken. The chamber erupted in discussions among the alien representatives. Some seemed satisfied, others indifferent. A few appeared sympathetic. But sympathy changed nothing. Kim stood alone on the platform, representing 7 billion people who had just been told they were not good enough for the galaxy. The return journey to Earth took 3 weeks. Kim spent most of it in his quarters, staring at the walls of the council transport ship. They had given him passage home as a courtesy, but no council member spoke to him. He was already a ghost to them, a representative of a quarantined world. When he finally arrived back on Earth, the United Nations Assembly waited for his report. Leaders from every nation had gathered, their faces filled with hope that died the moment they saw Kim's expression. "They rejected us," Kim said simply. "We are alone." The assembly hall fell silent. Then someone started crying. Others began shouting. Some sat in stunned disbelief. Kim watched it all with empty eyes. He had failed. Humanity had failed. But in the chaos, a voice cut through the noise. Dr. Sarah Park, the head of Earth's Space Development Agency, stood at her seat. "So they think we're not good enough?" she said, her voice sharp with anger. "They think we're too primitive? Too violent? Too divided?" "That is correct," Kim replied, exhausted. "Then we'll prove them wrong," Park said. "Not by begging for another chance. Not by waiting 1,000 years for them to reconsider. We'll do it our way." "What are you suggesting?" asked Commander Lee Jae-sung. "The military liaison to the space program." Park smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "They've quarantined us, right? No contact, no observation except for some remote probes. They're not going to pay attention to primitive Earth because they've already dismissed us." "Your point?" Kim asked. "My point is that we have the greatest advantage any civilization could ask for," Park said. "We have been underestimated. They're not watching us closely. They don't think we're capable of surprising them. So, we will." "How?" demanded a dozen voices at once. Park activated her own holographic display. It showed star charts of regions far from Council space, areas marked as unexplored or deemed worthless by galactic standards. "We build out there," Park said. "In the places they don't care about, don't monitor, don't want. We send colony ships in secret. We develop our technology away from their eyes. We grow strong in the shadows. And when we're ready, when we've built something they can't ignore, then we'll show them what rejected species can accomplish." The assembly erupted again, but this time with energy instead of despair. Arguments flew back and forth. Some called it madness. Others called it humanity's only hope. Commander Lee Jae-sung stood. "I support this plan. We have resources, knowledge, and determination. What we lack is their approval, and I'm no longer convinced we need it." The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it was unanimous. Humanity would not wait for the Council's permission to reach for the stars. They would build their own path, hidden from those who had rejected them. Kim Min-jun watched the proceedings and felt something stirring in his chest. Not hope. Not yet. But something close to it. Purpose. Perhaps. Direction. "They rejected us from their galaxy," Park said in her closing statement. "So we'll build our own. And someday, they'll realize their mistake." The first colony ship, named Times Defiance Asterisk, launched 6 months later. Its destination was a star system in a region the Council called the Void Sectors, worthless space far from their precious trade routes. On board were 5,000 colonists, enough supplies to start a new world, and humanity's determination to prove everyone wrong. As the ship vanished into faster-than-light travel, Kim stood at the observation window and whispered a promise to the stars. "We'll be back, and when we return, you'll see us differently." Behind him, Earth began preparing the second colony ship, then the third, then the 10th. In the shadows between stars, humanity was about to begin the greatest undertaking in its history. The Council had given them isolation. humanity would turn it into opportunity. The age of the Shadow Empire had begun. 200 years had passed since the Council's rejection, though for the Galactic Council itself, this was barely a blink of their collective eye. Species that lived for centuries saw time differently than humans did. To them, Earth remained frozen in their records as a primitive world full of violent primates, not worth a second thought. The monitoring probe stationed near Earth's solar system sent its routine reports every decade. Each one confirmed what the Council expected. Humanity puttered around their home system, building small stations, mining asteroids, showing no signs of significant advancement. The probes detected no faster-than-light travel, no expansion beyond their sun, no evidence of growing power. Earth appeared exactly as primitive as the Council had judged it to be. What the probes did not see was the truth. Park Ji-won stood on the observation deck of New Seoul Station, watching ships come and go from the orbital docks. She had been born here, in the void sectors, and had never seen Earth except in pictures and videos. Her grandmother had been one of the original colonists on the Times Defiance asterisk, and her mother had helped terraform 3 worlds. Now, at 32 years old, Ji-won led the research division for the Terran Shadow Collective. Below the station, the planet Shin Hanguk glowed green and blue. Once, it had been a frozen rock with an atmosphere of poisonous methane. Humanity had changed it over 70 years, using techniques the Council considered impossible for primitive species. Now, 2 billion humans called it home, along with parks full of trees from Earth and oceans teeming with fish. "Director Park," called a voice behind her. Chen Wei, captain of the warship Times Unseen Dawn asterisk, approached with quick steps. "You asked to see me, Captain Chen?" Ji-won greeted him with a bow. "Yes. I wanted to show you something before the Council meeting tomorrow." She led him to her laboratory, a secure facility in the station's core. Inside, holographic displays showed technical schematics that would have made Council scientists weep with envy. "This is our latest breakthrough," Ji-won explained, highlighting one particular design. "We've been studying the Council monitoring probes for decades, analyzing how they detect ships and signals. We finally cracked their scanning algorithms. And?" Chen asked, leaning closer. "And we've developed a communication system they literally cannot detect," Ji-won said with pride. "We call it the Silent Network. It uses quantum entanglement in a way Council technology doesn't even look for because they think it's impossible." Chen whistled low. "Instant communication across any distance, completely invisible to their sensors. Exactly. Every shadow colony, every ship, every station can now coordinate in real time without any risk of Council detection." This was how humanity had thrived in the shadows. While the Council assumed Earth remained technologically stagnant, the 47 hidden human colonies had been advancing at incredible speed. Humans had always been good at learning from observation, at reverse engineering, and improving on what they saw. The Council's own monitoring probes had become humanity's teachers. By carefully studying how they worked, human scientists had learned to build better versions. By watching Council ships pass through distant regions, humans had developed their own, faster-than-light drives, different from Council designs but equally effective. "The Council thinks they're so advanced," Chen said with a grin. "But they've been using the same technology for thousands of years. They stopped innovating because they didn't need to innovate." "Exactly," Ji-won agreed. "They're comfortable, stable, set in their ways. Meanwhile, we've had to scratch and claw for every advancement. We couldn't afford to be comfortable." She pulled up another display showing population statistics. 12 billion humans now lived in shadow space, scattered across 47 worlds. Some were garden planets like Shin Hanguk. Others were harsh death worlds that Council species would never survive, like the lava planet Bulgasari, where humans lived in underground cities cooled by massive heat exchangers. Humans had discovered something the Council never understood. Their definition of a habitable world was far too narrow. Species raised in comfortable environments couldn't adapt to extremes. But humans, evolved on Earth's harsh and variable climate, could survive almost anywhere with the right technology. Tomorrow's meeting is about the new applications, Chen said. 4 more species want to join the collective. The Terran Shadow Collective had started as just humanity, hiding in the dark. But over decades, they had encountered other species, rejected or ignored by the Council, just like Earth had been. Some were considered too primitive. Others were from regions too remote to matter. A few had failed their Council evaluations for reasons as arbitrary as humanity's rejection. Humanity had offered them something the Council never did: a second chance. The Rixal refugees from the Omega Nebula, G1 listed. The Krell mining clans that Council deemed economically worthless. The Ventar, who were rejected for being too peaceful, if you can believe that. And the Mothrik, who failed their evaluation because they reproduced too quickly. 15 species now, counting us, Chen said. 15 civilizations the Council threw away like garbage. 16. After tomorrow, G1 corrected. The Salthine delegation is almost certainly going to be approved. The vote the next day confirmed it. In a massive conference chamber on New Sol, representatives from 15 species gathered around a circular table built to accommodate their different biologies. Humans sat alongside silicon-based Krell, gaseous Ventar, contained in elegant environmental suits, and insectoid Mothrik, whose compound eyes glittered with intelligence. Park G1 presented the Salthine case. They were a species of aquatic beings, rejected by the Council for having too much genetic diversity, which the Council claimed made them unstable. In reality, they were brilliant engineers who thought in 3 dimensions better than most species because they lived in oceans. All in favor of accepting the Salthine into the Terran Shadow Collective? Asked Ambassador Lee Sung-min, the current human representative. Every species voted yes. The Salthine delegation wept with gratitude, their tears mixing with the water in their environmental tanks. "Welcome to the family," Lee said warmly. "We don't care what the Council thinks you should be. We care about who you choose to become." This was humanity's philosophy, forged from their own rejection. Judge beings by their actions and their potential, not by arbitrary standards created by the comfortable and powerful. After the vote, G1 returned to her laboratory. Captain Chen found her there hours later, still working. "You should rest," he said. "You've been at this for 30 hours straight." "Can't," G1 replied, her eyes fixed on her screens. "I'm working on something new. Something that might change everything." She showed him the designs for a new type of ship, sleeker and faster than anything humanity had built before. Stealth warships, completely invisible to Council sensors, armed with weapons they won't detect until it's too late. "Why?" Chen asked quietly. "We've managed to stay hidden for 2 centuries. Why build weapons now?" G1 turned to face him, and her expression was serious. "Because hiding can't last forever, Captain. Sooner or later, something will happen that forces us to reveal ourselves. And when that day comes, I want us to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For whatever comes next," she said. "The Council rejected us because they thought we were violent and primitive. If we ever have to face them again, I'd rather do it from a position of strength, not weakness." Chen understood. The memory of rejection still burned in humanity's collective consciousness, passed down through generations. They had built an empire in the shadows, not out of fear, but out of determination. They had proven they could thrive, without the Council's approval, but deep down every human wondered, what would happen if the Council ever discovered the truth? Far away, on the edge of Council space, a monitoring probe completed its routine scan of Earth's solar system. It detected nothing unusual. A few space stations, some mining operations, ships traveling between planets using primitive fusion drives. Exactly what was expected from a quarantined primitive world. The probe filed its report and went dormant for another decade. It had no way of knowing that the ships it detected were deliberately flying old, outdated vessels to maintain the illusion. It could not see the silent network connecting 47 colonies across thousands of light years. It did not detect the stealth shipyards producing weapons that could challenge Council vessels. The probe saw what it expected to see, and nothing more. In her laboratory on New Sol, G1 looked at the star charts showing shadow space. 12 billion humans, 16 allied species. Technology that rivaled or exceeded the Council's own. An empire built from rejection, thriving in the dark. Let them keep ignoring us, she whispered to the stars. Every year they dismiss us. We grow stronger. Every decade they forget about us. We learn more. And if the day ever comes when they remember we exist, they're going to discover they made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Behind her, construction crews worked around the clock, building the first of the new stealth warships. The times unseen dawn times would soon have sisters. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Humanity was preparing for a future the Council could not imagine. In the shadows between stars, a rejected species had become something magnificent. And they were just getting started. The distress signal reached every corner of known space, cutting through thousands of communications channels simultaneously. It was the Galactic Council's first galaxy-wide emergency broadcast in over 2,000 years. And the desperation in it was impossible to miss. All civilizations, Council members and non-members alike, this is an urgent call for assistance. The Sothek swarm has invaded Council space and is consuming inhabited worlds. 3 member planets have already fallen. Billions of lives have been lost. We request immediate military aid from any species capable of providing it. On Earth, the official government received the message and did exactly what was expected of a quarantined, primitive world. They sent a polite response explaining that humanity lacked the capability to assist and wished the Council well in their crisis. The message was filed away and forgotten, but in shadow space, 12 billion humans and their allies heard the same distress call, and the response was very different. Commander Lee Sung-hee stood in the war room on New Sol Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing the carnage in Council space. The Sothek swarm was like nothing the galaxy had seen in millennia, a hive species that consumed everything in its path, converting organic matter into more of themselves. They had appeared from beyond the galactic rim 3 months ago, and the Council had been losing ever since. "Show me the latest intelligence," Lee ordered. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Kim Jae-ho, brought up new data. 3 worlds completely stripped of life. The Council has lost 40% of their military fleet, trying to stop them. The Zothek don't negotiate, don't communicate, just consume and multiply. Their tactics, Lee asked. Mass assault with overwhelming numbers, Kim replied. They sacrifice thousands of their own ships to break through defensive lines, then land ground forces that literally eat everything. The Council's rigid battle formations can't adapt fast enough. Lee studied the data with experienced eyes. She was the granddaughter of the Commander Lee, who had helped launch humanity's shadow expansion 2 centuries ago. And she had inherited his strategic mind. What she saw in these battle reports made her shake her head in frustration. "The Council is fighting like they always do," she said. "By the book, using established tactics that worked against conventional enemies. But the Sothek aren't conventional. They're treating this like a chess game when they should be treating it like a street fight. So what do we do?" asked Admiral Kwon Tae-yang, commander of humanity's Shadow Fleet. "This isn't our problem. The Council rejected us, quarantined us. Why should we help them?" The question hung in the air. Around the room, officers and advisors waited for Lee's answer. It was a fair question. The Council had judged humanity unworthy, had isolated them for 200 years. They had shown Earth no mercy and no second chances. "Gather the collective representatives," Lee said finally. "This decision is too big for humanity alone." 6 hours later, the leadership of the Terran Shadow Collective assembled in emergency session. 16 species, all of them rejected or dismissed by the Council, debated what to do about the crisis consuming the galaxy. "Let them burn," growled a Krell representative, his silicon body glowing hot with anger. "They called us worthless because our biology didn't fit their standards. Now they want our help? Billions of innocent civilians are dying," countered a Ventar diplomat, her gaseous form swirling with agitation inside her containment suit. "Civilians who never voted to reject us, who probably don't even know we exist. Do we condemn them for their government's mistakes? If we reveal ourselves, we lose our greatest advantage," warned a Mothric strategist. "The Council will know we've been developing in secret. They might see us as a threat." The debate raged for hours. Some wanted revenge, to watch the Council suffer as they had suffered. Others argued for mercy, for proving themselves better than those who had rejected them. Still others worried about the practical consequences of exposure. Lee Sung-hee listened to it all, then stood to speak. "I understand the anger," she said. "My grandfather died never seeing Earth again because the Council deemed us unworthy. My family has lived with that rejection for generations. But I also know something the Council forgot. We didn't build this collective to become like them. We built it to be better." She activated a display showing civilian refugees fleeing Jothek attacks. Mothers clutching children, elderly beings helped by younger ones, entire communities running for their lives. "These people didn't reject us," Lee continued. "They're just trying to survive. And if we let them die because we want revenge on their government, then maybe the Council was right about us. Maybe we are too violent, too cruel, to join civilized society. So, we help them?" asked the Salthine representative. "We help them," Lee confirmed. "But on our terms. We don't announce ourselves. We don't ask for permission or gratitude. We hit the Zothek hard, using tactics the Council can't even imagine. And we save as many lives as we can. And if the Council figures out who's helping them, that's their problem to deal with." The vote was close, but it passed. The Terran Shadow Collective would intervene. Admiral Quan took command of the operation. 500 stealth warships, the pride of humanity's secret fleet, prepared for combat. 200 support vessels, loaded with supplies and medical equipment. Crews from all 16 collective species volunteered for the mission. "Our advantages," Quan explained to his captains during the final briefing, "are stealth, speed, and unpredictability. The Zothek have never faced an enemy they couldn't see. The Council fights them head-on. We'll fight them like ghosts." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Ignore the big battles where Council fleets fought desperately. Instead, target Zothek supply lines, breeding ships, and coordination nodes. Hit them where they didn't expect it, destroy their ability to sustain their swarm, then vanish before they could respond. The first strike came 3 days later. A Zothek hive ship, massive and grotesque, was traveling to reinforce an attack on a Council colony when it suddenly exploded from within. The Zothek had no idea what happened. Their sensors detected no attacking ships, no weapons fire, nothing. What they didn't know was that the Times, Unseen Dawn Times, and 12 sister ships had approached using stealth technology the Council had never developed, fired weapons using energy signatures the Zothek couldn't detect, and vanished back into the dark before the hive ship's debris stopped burning. The attacks continued. Zothek breeding facilities, hidden on captured asteroids, erupted in fire as invisible attackers struck with surgical precision. Supply convoys found themselves ambushed by enemies that appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating force, and disappeared like smoke. Coordination nodes that directed swarm movements went dark without warning. The Zothek, for the first time since entering Council space, felt fear. They were being hunted by something they couldn't understand, couldn't see, couldn't fight. The Council noticed too. Battle reports started including strange phenomena. Zothek ships destroyed by unknown weapons. Enemy formations disrupted by mysterious explosions. Refugees saved by vessels that vanished before they could be thanked or identified. Council Intelligence Director Vornoth became obsessed with identifying these ghost attackers. He analyzed every scrap of data, every energy signature, every witness report, and slowly, impossibly, he began to see a pattern. The weapons signatures, though strange, had elements that matched technology from centuries ago. Specifically, primitive human technology from Earth's early space exploration, refined and improved beyond recognition, but with the same fundamental principles. No, Vornoth whispered to himself in his office, staring at the analysis. It can't be. The monitoring probes show Earth hasn't advanced. They're still limited to their own solar system. They can't even have faster-than-light travel. But the evidence kept mounting. Tactical approaches that matched human historical warfare. Guerrilla tactics. Asymmetric combat. Prioritizing enemy logistics over direct confrontation. It was all there in Earth's military history, now applied to space combat with devastating effectiveness. Vornoth made a decision that would change everything. He sent a delegation to Earth to investigate, expecting to find nothing. After all, the probes had been watching for 200 years. Earth couldn't possibly have hidden an entire fleet. On Earth, the official government received the council delegation with polite confusion. "We don't have any fleets," the human representative said honestly. "You can check for yourselves. We have some stations, some mining ships, but nothing military. Certainly nothing capable of faster-than-light travel." It was all technically true. Earth itself didn't have a fleet. The Shadow Fleet operated from bases thousands of light-years away, but Vornoth found clues anyway. Population records that didn't quite add up, industrial capacity that produced far less than it should, historical records of colony ship launches that the current government claimed never happened. It was like looking at a puzzle, with missing pieces. "Something is wrong here," Vornoth told his team. "I don't know what, but Earth is hiding something." His investigation was interrupted by an urgent message from Council Space. The Zathek had massed their entire remaining swarm for one final, desperate attack. Every ship, every soldier, everything they had left was converging on Caldrus Prime, a council world with 4 billion civilians. The Council fleet formed a defensive line, knowing they were outmatched. Council Commander Thelvas, the same being who had rejected humanity 200 years ago, sent what he believed would be his final transmission. "To all council members, this is our last stand. We will hold as long as we can. It has been an honor to serve." Thelvas out. The Zathek swarm approached like a living wave, thousands of ships blotting out the stars. The council fleet opened fire, destroying hundreds, but thousands more kept coming. The defensive line began to buckle. Then, in the space around the council fleet, 500 ships decloaked simultaneously. The stealth warships of the Shadow Fleet appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with unknown metals, their weapons charging with power the Council had never seen. They surrounded the Council fleet like protective guardians, creating a wall of steel between the defenders and the swarm. Admiral Quan opened a communication channel that broadcast to every Council ship. "Terran Shadow Collective to Council Fleet," he said calmly, as if he did this every day. "We're here to help. Follow our lead, and we'll all get through this together." The battle that followed would be remembered for 1,000 years. For a moment, the battlefield hung frozen in stunned silence. The Council fleet stared at the 500 unknown warships that had appeared from nowhere. The Zathek swarm hesitated, their hive mind struggling to process this new threat. Then the moment shattered and chaos erupted. Admiral Quan didn't waste time with explanations. "All Shadow Fleet vessels, engage at will. Target their coordination nodes first, then their heavy assault ships. Stay mobile, stay unpredictable. Show them how we fight." The human warships moved like nothing the Council had ever seen. They didn't form rigid battle lines or maintain defensive formations. Instead, they flowed through space like schools of fish. Each ship, an individual, yet part of a greater whole. They darted between Zathek vessels, firing weapons that tore through alien hulls with precision, then vanished behind stealth fields before return fire could find them. Council Commander Thelvas watched in disbelief from his flagship bridge. "What are those ships? Where did they come from?" "Unknown, Commander," his tactical officer replied. "But they're destroying Zothek vessels at 3 times our effectiveness rate. Their weapons technology is unlike anything in our database." The Shadow Fleet wasn't fighting the way the Council fought. Council doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and strong defensive positions. Human tactics emphasized speed, deception, and hitting enemies where they were weakest. It was the difference between a hammer and a scalpel. "Coordination Node Alpha destroyed," reported Captain Chen Wei from the Times Unseen Dawn *. His ship had just vaporized a massive Zothek command vessel that had been directing a section of the swarm. Without its guidance, dozens of enemy ships faltered, their movements becoming confused and disorganized. "Confirmed," replied another captain. "Breaking off to engage heavy assault cluster near Sector 7. The battle became a deadly dance. Human ships appeared, struck with devastating accuracy, and disappeared before the Zothek could focus fire on them. Meanwhile, the Council fleet, inspired by these mysterious allies, pushed forward with renewed courage. Their heavy weapons, guided by human tactical data shared through open channels, began targeting the weak points in Zothek formations that Shadow Fleet attacks created. But the Zothek were not mindless. Their hive intelligence adapted, learning from each encounter. They began saturating areas with weapons fire, trying to catch the invisible human ships. Some succeeded. A human destroyer took a direct hit, its stealth field flickering and failing. "This is the Times Silent Thunder *. We're hit and venting atmosphere," the captain transmitted. "Engines offline. Weapons disabled. We're dead in the water." The Zothek swarmed toward the crippled ship like sharks sensing blood. Dozens of enemy vessels converged, preparing to tear the destroyer apart. "All nearby vessels, converge on Times Silent Thunder *. Admiral Quan ordered. "We don't leave anyone behind." But the Council fleet was closer. Thelvas made a split-second decision that surprised even himself. All ships, defensive formation around the damaged unknown vessel. Protect it at all costs. Council warships, massive and powerful, moved to shield the crippled human destroyer. They took hits meant for the smaller ship, their heavy armor absorbing Zothek weapons fire. At the same time, other Shadow Fleet vessels appeared around the formation, their combined firepower driving the Zothek back. A boarding shuttle launched from a Council cruiser, heading for the Times Silent Thunder *. When it docked, Council rescue teams found human crew members, injured but alive. The rescuers stared in shock. These mysterious warriors were humans? The same species they had rejected 200 years ago as too primitive? "Get them to medical," ordered the Council team leader, pushing aside confusion. "Worry about questions later." The battle raged for 6 hours. Slowly, methodically, the combined force of Shadow Fleet and Council ships broke the Zothek swarm. The aliens had thrown everything into this assault, and they were losing. Their coordination networks were destroyed, their heavy ships disabled, their supply lines cut by earlier Shadow Fleet raids. The swarm began to fragment, individual ships fleeing in all directions. Admiral Quan watched the Zothek retreat and allowed himself a small smile. "All ships, pursuit protocols. Don't let them regroup. Chase them to the edge of the system, then break off." As the battle wound down, damaged ships from both fleets began recovery operations. Council vessels found themselves working alongside the mysterious Shadow Fleet, sharing supplies and medical personnel. Language barriers meant nothing when universal translators handled the communication, and injury looked the same regardless of species. Park Minseo, a human medic, boarded Thelvas's flagship to help with their wounded. She found the medical bay overwhelmed with injured Council personnel. Without hesitation, she began treating them with skill and compassion that surprised the Council doctors. You're human, one council doctor said. More statement than question. Yes, Minseo replied while sealing a wound on an injured soldier. No, the monitoring report said Earth was still primitive. Minseo smiled grimly. A lot has changed in 200 years. She moved through the medical bay, treating council wounded with the same care she would give her own people. When she reached Thelvas himself, injured from a console explosion on his bridge, she didn't hesitate. Hold still, Commander, she said gently. This will hurt, but I'll be quick. Thelvas watched this human medic, this representative of a species he had personally rejected centuries ago, work to save his life with steady hands and kind eyes. The irony was not lost on him. Why are you helping us? He asked quietly. We rejected your species. We called you too primitive, too violent. We isolated you for 200 years. Minseo didn't look up from her work. Because you needed help. And we could provide it. That's reason enough. Minseo. But the revenge, the anger. Oh, we're angry, Minseo said honestly. We've been angry for 2 centuries. But we decided a long time ago that we wouldn't let your judgment define us. We built something better than revenge. We built a civilization that helps people, even people who hurt us. 2. Her words struck Thelvas like a physical blow. This was not the primitive, violent species the Council had evaluated. This was something else entirely. On the bridge of the Times Unseen Dawn *, Captain Chen received a communication request from Council Intelligence Director Vornath, who had witnessed the battle from a monitoring vessel. Unknown vessel. This is Director Vornath of Council Intelligence. I request permission to speak with your commanding officer. Chen considered refusing, then decided transparency was inevitable now. This is Captain Chen Wei of the Terran Shadow Collective. I'm authorized to speak on behalf of our fleet. There was a long pause. Terran. You're from Earth. Originally, yes. Though I was born in shadow space myself. Shadow space? The regions you consider worthless, Chen explained. The void sectors. The death worlds. The empty zones beyond your trade routes. We've been living there for 2 centuries. Building a civilization you never noticed because you weren't looking. Vornath struggled to process this information. But the monitoring probes show Earth hasn't advanced. You can't have. Where did you? Your probes see what they expect to see, Chen said. Old ships, puttering around Earth's solar system. Primitive technology. Nothing impressive. Because that's what we show them. Meanwhile, out here in the dark, we built 47 colonies, developed technology that rivals yours, and created an alliance of 16 species you rejected or ignored. Impossible, Vornath whispered. Yet here we are, Chen replied. 500 warships. 12 billion citizens. An empire forged from your rejection. Admiral Quan's voice cut into the conversation. Captain Chen. Bring Director Vornath aboard the Times Defiant *. It's time we had a proper conversation. An hour later, Vornath stood in the conference room of humanity's flagship, surrounded by human officers and representatives from other collective species. Admiral Quan sat at the head of the table, her expression calm but firm. You have questions, Quan said. Ask them. How did we not know? Vornath demanded. We've been monitoring Earth for 200 years. You've been monitoring Earth, Quan agreed. Not the void sectors. Not the regions you deemed unimportant. You saw what you expected to see. And stopped looking. But the technology, the ships, the coordination. We learned by watching you, Quan explained. Your monitoring probes taught us about your sensors. So we built technology you couldn't detect. Your ships taught us about faster-than-light travel, so we developed our own version. You were our teachers, though you never knew it. Vornath sat heavily. And the other species? You said 16? A Krell representative spoke, his silicon body glowing softly. We were rejected for having the wrong biology. The Terran Shadow Collective offered us a home when the Council said we were worthless. Aventar added, We were deemed too peaceful to be useful. Humanity taught us that peace is not weakness. One by one, representatives from rejected species told their stories. Civilizations dismissed, ignored, or deemed inadequate by council standards, all of them given second chances by humanity. A species that understood rejection intimately. You built an empire from our mistakes, Vornath said quietly. We built a family from your arrogance, Quan corrected. And when you needed help, we came. Not because you deserved it, but because those civilians on Caldrus Prime didn't deserve to die for the Council's mistakes. Outside the ship, cleanup operations continued. Human and Council crews worked side by side, recovering escape pods, repairing damaged vessels, treating wounded, old enemies becoming reluctant allies in the wake of shared battle. Delvas stood at an observation window, his injuries bandaged by human hands, watching the cooperation with wonder. Beside him, Park Minseo appeared with a medical scanner. Time to check those wounds, Commander, she said professionally. Tell me, medic. Thelvas said. What happens now? Your people revealed themselves to save us. What do you want in return? Minseo smiled. Commander, we didn't do this for a reward. We did it because it was right. What happens next is up to the Council. You can acknowledge that you were wrong about us, or you can keep pretending we don't exist. Either way, we'll keep being who we are. And who are you? Thelvas asked. We're the species you rejected, Minseo said simply. And we're the ones who saved you anyway. The emergency summit was held on the Council's central station, a massive structure orbiting their capital world. For the first time in Council history, representatives from non-member civilizations sat at the main table as equals. The 16 species of the Terran Shadow Collective occupied seats that had been hastily added to the ancient chamber. Ambassador Kim Da-eun, great-granddaughter of the man who had been rejected 2 centuries ago, led the human delegation. She was young, only 40 years old, but she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what she represented. Behind her sat Admiral Quan, Commander Lee, and Director Park Ji-won, along with representatives from every collective species. Across the table, the Council's leadership watched with expressions ranging from shame to fear to grudging respect. Director Vornath sat among them, having spent the past week compiling a complete report on the Shadow Collective's capabilities. What he had discovered had shaken the Council to its core. Council Speaker Meltar, a being of ancient years and immense authority, opened the session. We are gathered to address a situation unprecedented in 12,000 years of galactic governance. A civilization we deemed primitive has proven itself our equal, perhaps our superior. 16 species we rejected or ignored have built an alliance that saved us from extinction. We owe them our lives and our honesty. The chamber fell silent. For proud civilizations used to being the galaxy's authority, this admission came hard. The Council was wrong. Meltar continued, and those words sent shockwaves through the assembly. We rejected humanity, based on incomplete understanding. We isolated them, out of arrogance. We assumed our evaluation was infallible. We were mistaken. Ambassador Kim Da-eun stood. Speaker Meltar, we appreciate your honesty, but we didn't come here for an apology. We came to discuss the future. Of course, Meltar said. The Council is prepared to offer humanity and your allies immediate full membership, with all associated rights and privileges. We will provide reparations for the 2 centuries of isolation. We will share our technology freely. We will make amends. Kim nodded slowly. And what about the other species currently under developmental observation? The civilizations you've quarantined, just like you did to us? The question hung in the air like a challenge. There are 37 species currently in observation status, Kim continued. How many of them are actually primitive? And how many did you simply not understand? How many could have become allies like we did, if given the chance? The observation protocols have served us well for millennia, protested one council member, a being that looked like a floating crystal. They protect unprepared species from the dangers of galactic contact. Or they protect you from having to deal with species that don't fit your comfortable standards, countered Park Ji-won, standing beside Kim. We reviewed your evaluation criteria. They're designed to find civilizations exactly like yourselves. Anyone different gets rejected. Director Vornoth stood, surprising everyone. She's right. I've spent the past week analyzing our evaluation system, comparing it to what the Shadow Collective has achieved. Our criteria are flawed. We reject species for being too peaceful, too aggressive, too diverse, too uniform. We've rejected civilizations for having unusual biology, unconventional governments, or simply being located in regions we found inconvenient. He activated a holographic display showing the rejected species. The Krell were denied because silicon-based life was deemed too alien. The Ventar, because their gaseous nature made us uncomfortable. The Mothric because they reproduce quickly, which we called unstable. Every single one of these species had something valuable to offer. But we couldn't see past our own prejudices. What are you suggesting? Asked Speaker Meltar. I'm suggesting we were arrogant fools, Vornoth said bluntly. And these humans proved it by building something better than what we have. Kim Da-eun raised her hand. If I may, we have conditions for joining the council. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Conditions? Species didn't make conditions for council membership. It was an honor. A privilege granted by the Galactic Authority. Speak, Meltar said, silencing the noise. First, Kim said clearly. Every species currently in developmental observation must be re-evaluated fairly. Not according to your old criteria, but with genuine consideration for their potential and their right to self-determination. Agreed, Meltar said without hesitation. The other council members looked surprised, but none objected. Second, Kim continued, all 16 species of the Terran Shadow Collective must be granted full council membership simultaneously, with equal status to existing members. Also agreed, Meltar said. Third, and most important, Kim said, her voice growing stronger. The council must reform its governing structure. No more can a small group of ancient civilizations dictate standards for the entire galaxy. The council must include diverse perspectives, must value different approaches, must judge species by what they can become, not what they currently are. This caused real controversy. Council members argued, debated, and protested. The system had worked for 12,000 years. Why change it now? Commander Lee Sung-hee stood. Because your system failed. It failed when you rejected us. It failed when the Zothek nearly destroyed you. It failed every time you dismissed a species that could have been a valuable ally. You need to change, not because we demand it, but because the galaxy deserves better. The debate raged for hours. Some council members resisted change, clinging to tradition. Others, shamed by recent events, argued for reform. Vornoth became an unexpected advocate for the human position, presenting data showing how council prejudices had weakened galactic civilization. Finally, after 12 hours of discussion, Speaker Meltar called for a vote. All in favor of accepting the Terran Shadow Collective's conditions and beginning comprehensive council reform. The vote was not unanimous, but it passed. The council, for the first time in its long history, had agreed to fundamental change at the request of species it had once rejected. Kim Da-eun allowed herself a small smile. Then we accept your offer of membership. The Terran Shadow Collective will join the Galactic Council as equal partners. There is one more thing, Admiral Kwan said, standing. We will maintain our territories in shadow space. The free territories, as we're now calling them, will remain under collective governance. We're not abandoning what we built. Of course, Meltar agreed. Your sovereignty over the regions you colonized is unquestioned. You built an empire in the shadows. It would be foolish of us to ask you to give it up. Over the following months, the reforms began. The 37 species, in developmental observation, were re-evaluated. 23 were found to have been unjustly quarantined and were offered council membership. 8 more chose to join the Terran Shadow Collective instead, finding humanity's philosophy more appealing than the council's traditional approach. The council itself underwent restructuring. New members brought new perspectives. The rigid evaluation criteria were replaced with more flexible guidelines that valued diversity and potential. Species were no longer judged by how similar they were to existing council members, but by their commitment to cooperation and growth. The free territories became a beacon for innovation. The 47 human colonies, plus settlements from the other collective species, continued to develop technology and culture, free from council bureaucracy. Trade flourished between council space and the free territories, with both sides benefiting from the exchange. Earth itself experienced a renaissance. No longer isolated, it became a hub where council species came to learn about the civilization that had saved them. Museums displayed the history of rejection and resilience. Universities taught courses on how humanity had turned isolation into opportunity. 10 years after the summit, Ambassador Kim Da-eun stood once again before the council, but this time as an equal member. She was presenting a proposal for a joint exploration initiative into uncharted regions of the galaxy. The Zathek came from beyond the galactic rim, she explained. There may be other threats out there, or other civilizations in need. We propose a combined fleet, drawing from both council members and free territory forces, to explore and make peaceful contact. The proposal passed easily. The council had learned to trust the judgment of those they once dismissed. That evening, Kim stood in an observation lounge overlooking Council Station, watching ships from hundreds of species come and go. Beside her stood the ancient director Vornath, now retired but still influential. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd accepted humanity the first time?" Vornath asked. Kim considered the question. "We probably would have become just another council member. Comfortable, stable, following your rules without question. The rejection forced us to find our own path. I betain, and in finding that path, you showed us a better way," Vornath said. "Strange how these things work." "Not strange," Kim replied. "Just human. We have a saying on Earth: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger." The council's rejection could have destroyed us, but we chose to let it strengthen us instead. "I was there, you know," Vornath said quietly. 200 years ago, when your ancestor presented Earth's first application, I voted to reject you. I thought humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable. "Were we?" Kim asked. "Yes," Vornath admitted. "But we were too comfortable, too certain, too closed to new ideas. You were exactly what the galaxy needed, and we were too blind to see it." Kim placed a hand on the old director's shoulder. "What matters is what we do now. Across the galaxy, in the free territories, construction continued on new colonies and stations. In the Council's science institutes, human and alien researchers collaborated on projects that would have been impossible before. In classrooms on 1,000 worlds, children from dozens of species learned about the Shadow War and the civilization that had been rejected but had saved the galaxy anyway. The story became legend, told and retold across the stars. How humanity was deemed unworthy by those who claimed to know best. How they refused to accept that judgment and built an empire in the places others feared or ignored. How they grew strong in the shadows, not through conquest but through determination and cooperation. And how, when the galaxy needed them most, they emerged from the darkness to save even those who had rejected them. Commander Lee Sung-hee, now an old woman, sat with her grandchildren in her home on New Seoul and told them the story of their family's journey. "Your great-great-grandfather was told humanity had no place in the galaxy," she said. "But he understood something the council didn't. No one gets to decide your place but you. You earn your place through your actions, your courage, your compassion. Did the council ever apologize? One grandchild asked. They did, Lee replied. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that we proved to ourselves what we could become. We didn't need their approval. We needed our own strength. On Earth, in the same United Nations chamber where Kim Min-jun had delivered the news of rejection 2 centuries ago, a memorial stood. It showed the names of the original Times, Defiance Times colonists, the people who had taken the first step into the shadows. Below their names, a simple inscription: rejected by the galactic, humanity forged an empire in the shadows. And when the galaxy needed saving, we were ready. The memorial was not a monument to victory or revenge. It was a reminder that rejection is not the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something greater, if you have the courage to write your own ending. Ambassador Kim Da-eun visited the memorial before every council session, touching her great-grandfather's name on the plaque. He had died long before seeing this moment, before knowing that his humiliation would lead to humanity's greatest triumph. But she knew he would be proud. "We did it, great-grandfather," she whispered. "We became exactly what they said we couldn't be. And we did it our way." The stars above Earth shone bright, no longer forbidden but welcoming. Humanity had earned its place among them, not through permission but through perseverance. The Shadow Empire had stepped into the light, and the galaxy was better for it. And in the quiet spaces between stars, in the free territories where rejected species had found new homes, the work continued, building, growing, learning, proving that there are no unworthy civilizations, only civilizations that haven't been given their chance. The Council had learned that lesson at last, and the galaxy would never forget.